And that goes your way. Hello, hello. Yes, it is March 3rd, 2026. This is the Call Light reporting live with Mr. Joey Colaizzi and Dr. Anthony Zaya. About ready to have a wonderful conversation with one of our nurse colleagues, former nurse colleagues, RaDonda Vaught.
She does still have her BSN, and I love that she signs her name, RaDonda Vaught, BSN. Like, nobody can take that away.
That's just wonderful. She's agreed to speak with us, and Joey's been communicating with her. And yeah, we're excited. Hopefully no technical difficulties here.
It's like up and running, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Can we share it with her? That's the meeting.
Share to meeting.
I got it.
Hey, it worked.
Hey, I was
Wonderful.
like, and I'm looking for the link here. I'm like, I know you sent me. We talked about it, and you're like, yeah, this is what we're gonna do.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, but I don't actually see anything here. Maybe I
Yeah,
just showed up
technology
on
is.
my calendar. And actually it showed up on my calendar as like Teams. So then I was like, oh, it says Zoom. One said Zoom, one said Teams. I'm like, I'm really confused here.
Yeah, so are we, but we'll make it through.
You just hit all of the buttons until finally something
something happens.
Yeah.
Bam, bam. Yes. I get that. It's cool.
I'm just trying to figure out how this all works. Oh,
Ooh.
you want to scoot in a little bit?
You guys have like a whole technology room there. That's fun.
Yeah, but we don't have the people that know how to run it.
Yeah.
Oh, you are the people.
Right.
Yeah, you are.
Right.
You got
That's the problem.
They have this wonderful resource, the Colab resource, and they set everything up. They know what's going on, and they say, "Here you go."
Collab.
Colab.
CO capital LAB.
Yeah. So like collab. It's what the kids say.
The collab. We're gonna collab.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever find out if this is real or if it's a gang sign?
I did not do the research on that, but I'm going to go with I did have some thoughts about it. I like, hold on, do it again. To me, there's like a representation of like connectedness and hand holding there. So I'm gonna go with not a gang sign.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with this is the new like we're connecting even more. Yeah.
Now
we've evolved to this.
The collab gang.
Current level of this is our collab. This is the collab. This is the love of collab.
Yeah.
That's it. We so know what's happening.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
For hanging out. I'm
here.
Awesome.
Making sure we got good light. Can you hear me okay? Because I do have I don't even honestly know which one of these microphones is working. But
we hear you great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
View.
And so I think when we shared the content, I don't know if that's what got her in, because that's as soon as she.
No, I actually just put the meeting code in and clicked join.
Oh, okay.
Maybe hit the sharing content and then stop sharing and see if that will bring us back.
Boom.
There you go. There you go. Because that's what happened. Well, it was weird because as soon as you hit share is when you must have hit the button the same exact time as we did, and it.
You're like, I don't know what happened here, but
it started to collab.
So there we are. We were just there, and it just happened. It's all good.
Don't get too close now.
No,
I didn't shave today.
I showered this morning though.
You guys
Um,
look great.
hey, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I've got literally all day, but I know you've got something at 1, but I don't want to presume that that means we get to hang out with you from now till 1.
Well, I
So,
would say let's probably count on a couple of hours usually. Like if we're going to try to have a conversation, I would say let's give it that amount of time.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That way we can, actually have let's get the most out of our time.
I would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
w-
Joey, remind me, sir, to the left of Joey. I cannot remember your name. I know we met.
that's okay. I was just gonna say, I just want to kind of introduce myself. I know you and Joey have been talking, back and forth, so you know each other pretty
But didn't
well.
we meet briefly at the end of?
Uh-huh.
We briefly
Okay,
met at the end of your last conversation.
faces
So
I remember, but names.
yeah, it's okay. I always go, I'm Tony, Zaya,
Okay.
Tony Zaya,
Okay,
and
Tony.
I that'll help you remember, I guess.
That's funny.
But I just recently started teaching here last year at Johnson County, and I'm still practicing nursing at Advent Health Hospital down the street. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I worked at Cincinnati Children's for years and then moved out here. Um, and was a
You work
floater.
at
I was
Cincinnati Children's.
Cincinnati
Jenna
Children's.
Morandi works there.
Who's that?
Jenna Morandi. She's their med safety officer.
Jenna Morandi.
Hmm.
I I'm gonna have to look that up. I'll have to look that up.
They're doing a
Uh,
lot of really cool things there. Children's hospitals, I mean, do you agree? I could be wrong, but I feel like the children's hospitals are leaps and bounds ahead of the.
Cincinnati Children's we've always fought for the top spot of children's hospitals. So it's
Yeah.
either us or
Is it Chop?
It's either CHOP, so in
Yeah.
Boston.
Philadelphia. Yeah.
So Philadelphia is a big one, but we're always in lieu of just
Hmm.
bunch of different technology we're using, and always on the up and up with different things. And it was an incredible hospital to work for. I was a floater there, so I heard that you float as well, which
No, actually, and we'll get into that. I was not, that's one of those things. It's like myth versus fact. No, I was
oh,
a, I was a resource nurse in my unit, meaning like
got it.
if there was a float nurse for our unit that just floated around, it was a help all. So you call it a resource nurse because people are like, what's a help all nurse? There wasn't even a job description. There wasn't even a job description for it. It was just, I think it was something that probably several of the critical care units in Vanderbilt, I don't know if other ones utilized it or not, but we did. Um, so it was a charge nurse duties only, and then another nurse that did not take patients that was the help all nurse. And so literally I was free and available. Call me at any time. So I could be super, super helpful to 24 critical care patients or 12 step down patients all at once.
Wow, we exercise that at Children's with the hematology oncology floor, where the resource nurse would be available to check chemo or help with,
Yeah.
taking a patient to a different procedure or any of those
Yes,
things. Uh,
exactly.
so okay, and do CVC dressing changes.
Yes. Land a patient coming up from the OR. If you've got a stroke in the ER and you need to transfer people around, we had a tiny room. We could bring them up, start their TPA, do all the things so that they didn't have to stay in the ER. We could monitor that while we shuffled on our unit to get them into a bit like all of those things. Exactly. I don't, well, I mean, I know why more places don't put something like that. It's about money and staffing, but
George, yeah,
to
Yeah.
me, that was one of the greatest things that you literally always had someone that you could call on for help. Because who doesn't always need a hand?
you're right. You're right. And let me ask you a question on that. So to be in that role, a resource nurse role. I'm assuming that to be a resource nurse, you have to be a good resource. So I'm assuming they would not put like a baby nurse in that position because, obviously with the amount of experience and knowledge you have, the amount of resource abilities you have kind of, go down. So for you to gain that role, they had to trust your abilities and you had to showcase that you were a high performer.
I would agree with that. They must have saw something in me because I can tell you that there were plenty of other nurses who'd been there far longer than I had that didn't regularly fill that role. And for the last 6 months or so, I would say leading up to this event, I was in the help all role a pretty decent amount. And then actually during our epic go live, we had 2 help alls for a couple of weeks. And so there was like a whole 2-week period where that's all I did. I was the second help all, was one of 2 people that were in that role because we had so much to do with this whole EHR transition. And you might need a second set of hands to actually work on patient care while the nurse who's charting is trying to figure out, all of that stuff. And so for those 2 weeks, that was all I did. And then quite regularly, I mean, probably once a shift, not once a shift, but like maybe once a schedule, sometimes more than that. Sometimes it might be for the whole 2 or 3 days. It depends, but I could tell you that I was just as shocked when they asked me to do that as I was when they asked me to start training our new graduate nurses. Because, I mean, yeah, I'm sitting here 42 and this happened 8 years ago. So you're like, oh yeah, I must have had 10 years of experience as a nurse. I didn't graduate nursing school until 2015. Like 2014, December 12, 13 of 14 was my graduation date. I got licensed at the beginning of 2015 and I started my first job in a med-surg unit by like February of 2015. And I worked med-surg for 9 months. Was, how do I say this politically correct? Was a great,
It wasn't for you.
it was a great learning experience.
Uh-huh.
And
Mhm.
sometimes learning means knowing what not to do. It was a
Hmm.
great
Yep.
learning experience, but I knew that I felt incredibly unsafe there. And I had grave concerns about my ability to practice well, about what I was seeing around me, and about the patient care. And so Vanderbilt was the place I wanted to go. I needed 1 year of experience. I either needed to be a new graduate and enter the nurse residency program, which is highly competitive, and I'm like a B student. I wasn't like, 4.0. And so I did not meet their qualifications for getting that. But I thought I'm going to lean in, like Sheryl Sandberg says. In 9 months, if I were a dude would round that 9 months up to a year. So I rounded it up to a year and I applied for like 52 open jobs at Vanderbilt. And I was, because like, this is where I needed to be. This is
That's
where
wild.
I'd seen all these really amazing things while I was in nursing school. I'd had so many opportunities to go there to learn. I'm like, this is where I need to be, right? This is where I'm going to learn how to be a really good nurse. And so I'd only been there for 2 years and 2 months when this event happened on December 26th of 2017. So I'd been a nurse for, you know, the ink was dry on my license, but I would say, was I a little, I don't know that if I would say wet behind the ears, but I would not have considered myself like, I mean, if you would have asked me, like, are you an experienced nurse? I mean, like, I've only got 3 years and only 2 in critical care. So I was just experienced enough, you know, not to be dangerous, but ultimately it was. And I guess I'm saying all that to say, yeah, I had something going for me. And I think what I had going for me was that I was a little bit older than your average newly entering nurse. And I had like a legitimate drive to want to be there for people. So I wasn't the kind of nurse that would ever be on my phone. I wasn't the kind of nurse that would just be chilling at the nurse's station, knowing somebody else is back there, like In fact, it might be lunch and you might not see me. You might not even know that I was there because I spend all my time in my patients' rooms. Like, it might take me 10 minutes to give you that stool softener, but I need to talk to you all about it. I need to fluff your pillow while I'm in there and ask you about your grandkids and, tell you why we have this cool mirror in front of you and why this arm doesn't work, but it's still attached to, like I was very much attentive and in it. And maybe that's the thing that stood out, or at least just was a little bit extra about me that made me a good fit for working with people in that role of being a helpful person, because I could just walk around and recognize, hey, this person's got a heavy patient load today. You know, I know they've got this going on. I know I know there's an OR coming up. I just took it upon myself to stay very busy. So I was a good fit for that. And then in the same way, I was really good at explaining things and communicating, which made me a good fit for teaching new nurses and taking that time with them to not be some intimidating and overbearing, but maybe super smart nurse. I was a little more approachable, I guess.
And so glad that you laid that out, because that's, as we've talked a little bit, one of the things that struck me is the RaDonda that you think you know just from reading headlines doesn't capture any of what you just described as clearly someone who cares deeply about people. You moved from med surg to Vanderbilt because you cared so much about safety and giving safe care. You were top of the class at the bedside, being relatively new, but being help all nurse, being given orientees right out the gate. That you were an exemplar of the profession, which for myself, for our students, I think it's so vital that we recognize errors can happen to even the best of us.
They do. I can tell you 100 stories that my preceptor, who'd been there for 20 years, told me. She's like, she very distinctly, she was like, I can tell you, I had this patient that um, maybe they were going to have to RSI her, or maybe something else was happening. And they're like, we're probably going to get there. And she'd had family history of malignant hyperthermia. So succinylcholine was out for that, I believe.
Right.
So they had to
Sounds
use,
right.
I believe that's right. Right. So they were either in or out. I can't remember, but it was like, get this, don't get that. Right. And so she went to the machine, pulled the drug, come back. It was what he had asked her not to get. Went back again, same thing, returned it and got the wrong thing again. She was like, I went back 3 times before I got the right drug. 3 times. She was like, I can tell you about another time when I had a post-op patient, landed, everything's happening, right? You hang the insulin, you hang the IV, you're probably on pressors because your blood pressure can't get too high because, we just messed around in your brain up there. All of these things, right? And you get them stable, and then you're like, okay, I need to go take a quick 15 and grab a bite to eat. Thankfully, the help all walks by when she hears something beeping, or maybe it's the neighbor, I don't know. The pump is beeping. Someone goes in to check it. It's not the IV. It's the IV line. It's the IV that's beeping according to the pump. It's the antibiotic, but it's the whole bag of insulin that's just been perfused to the patient. Had they not caught that, had there not been a little air bubble there in the line that stopped it, you'd have had that whole bag of insulin infused, and then you'd be looking at a real different situation. These things happen, right? They happen. And good nurses, you can be anything you want in life, but you're never going to be perfect at it. You can be a janitor and put the wrong chemical on the floor. You can be a bus driver and forget to pick that kid up at the bus stop. You can be a person who sells fancy, expensive clothes, but still, give somebody the wrong size. The difference here in this profession is that there is so much on the line, and
The
nurses
stakes
are
are
held
high.
to this we're held to this standard of being a like superhuman, right? We're the most trusted profession
Nurses are superheroes, right?
Nurses are superheroes, right? Until we're not. It's like until you have a bad day and someone, finds out you're a nurse on the internet and decides to drag you through the coals because you had a bad day. That's irrelevant. You're, until you do something that is an honest mistake and then, all that goes out the window. We're just people and people are going to make mistakes. And it's honestly as simple as that. People are going to make mistakes. Making a mistake doesn't make you a bad person.
And, I remember I was listening to, it was a podcast about medication safety. And I remember somebody that they were interviewing on there and they were discussing, have you, have, if you made a med error, and they would ask this nurse this question. And if the nurse had over, I don't know what they said, 5 years of experience, 2 years of experience, it could have been, and they said, no, I've never had a med error. And they say, you know what? I don't really trust you because not only have you made a med error, but you are not man enough to admit
Or
you have
There's
made
either
that
one or two
mistake,
things. You didn't realize it,
yeah.
or you didn't
or
know.
you're too ashamed to admit it. And either if you didn't realize it, that's scary. And if you can't admit it, well, that's not a you problem. That's probably a culture problem in your facility, right?
Mhm.
Can we really can you blame someone for not wanting to admit that? Because what we just talked about, how harshly are you judged? It's not about the context of what happened and learning from it. In most hospitals, there are some who do a really great job of that, but I can understand. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm saying I'm putting myself in someone else's shoes and saying that I could understand why they would make that decision to say nothing. It's not what I would recommend that they do. It's not what I would hope that they would do. It's not, I don't agree with that, but I can empathize with someone being in that position and saying, no, I'm not saying anything.
I want to
Go ahead.
I want to circle back to that, definitely, but I wonder if just for anyone that we would share this with that doesn't know the story as
Yeah.
well as obviously you do, can you just give us the elevator pitch version of what happened? And
Yeah.
I think we've pretty well established that you are a person that is competent and caring and compassionate. So what happened in that event, and highlighting where the system failed you, that it wasn't just an individual moral failing, but there were cracks. Oh, and we also, didn't you tell me that you were voted like the most by your peers?
We did like unit superlatives during Nurses Week.
Yeah.
So people got to like vote for different things. And so I was the nurse's nurse. Like if you or your loved one were in the hospital, who on this unit would you want taking care of them?
That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's accolades from the people that worked with you every day, saying that you are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That meant something.
Oh,
meant something.
yeah.
You've already squelched some myths just in this first, float nurse, pre versus resource nurse, precepting new nurses, when you graduated, how long you've been practicing on the unit. I'm sorry, it's just thank you for setting the record straight. Because
well, it's important. I don't care about setting the record straight because of what someone thinks about me. What I care about are that you have facts on which you can make an educated decision moving forward. And I would say decision, you can put facts into your brain so that you can make better decisions for yourself moving forward. You can't base something like your assessment of the situation on, a 5-minute read, because context is out of the window. You're never going to get that. And it doesn't really matter what people think about me. I am more concerned with what do they truly understand. Do you understand the facts? Because it doesn't matter what you think about me. If you don't like me, guess what? I don't know you. I'm probably never going to meet you in my life. I'm going to sleep as okay as I currently sleep. It is what it is. Like, I'm not going to stay awake at night worrying about all the people who think poorly of me. I'm, I, I do stay awake at night thinking about how this information is being used to help people and whether or not they have the right information, whether or not they truly understand how a nurse like myself could wind up in this position, whether or not they truly understand the context behind that led up to this, and moving forward, what was later discovered that also contributed to it. Those are the things that keep me up at night because that's what is going to ultimately happen again and again and again and again unless we understand the facts. It's to me,
So,
it's about the facts.
so can you walk us through what?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this. So I looked back through, the medical records recently and my scheduling. And I actually, so this was my third day in a row, but I didn't realize it. I'd worked 24th, the 25th, and the 26th. But then prior to that, I had one day off and then 3 other days. And I think I had one day off and I think they had put me on call this day. So I'd worked 2 days, off 2 days, worked 3 days. That was what my work schedule looked like. Um, I didn't realize that until I looked back through things. So yeah, had I been there quite a bit? A lot.
Yeah, six. What's that? 60 hours in less than a week.
Yeah. Yeah, quite a bit. And so, yes, I also had this nurse with me who was orienting. He was probably 3 weeks in, 4 weeks into his orientation period. People have said, well, you shouldn't have been in this resource role and also had this new nurse with you. That was too much. That was by design. This nurse needed to have one day with the resource help all nurse on our unit. It was part of his checklist, right? You had to have a day with a help all nurse. You needed to understand what it is that they could do to help you with. And also, it's a really good opportunity for you to be in and out of a lot of different rooms,
Yeah, right.
see a lot of different potential skills and types of care early on that you're not always going to get the chance to see. Some types of patients we don't have that often, but you need to at least get to see it. And so this was a good opportunity to do things like that. So it was by design. So I'm here. This is probably mid-afternoon, 2:45-ish, that I get a phone call from. So our unit is set up to have with 24 critical care beds and 12 step down beds. So 12 critical care nurses, depending on the ratio, maybe 13 or 14. And then step down was usually 3 patients to nurse. Sometimes it could be 4, usually 3, but it was all the same staff, right? So they would just rotate through all the same group of people. We had very few nurses that only took care of step down patients, and only if that was because they felt comfortable. They needed a little bit of extra time before they moved into critical care,
Should be critical.
right, which was totally fine. But generally, you took care of everyone, and what you got was what you got for the day. Um, so we get a call from this nurse who's taking care of some step down patients. He asks me if I could go downstairs and administer a medication to his patient who's already downstairs in PET scan. He can't leave. He's watching his patients. His neighbor's also gone, so he can't go anywhere. The patients already left the unit. We had transport agents that would come and move people around in this hospital. So if you didn't have to have a nurse with you, the nurse didn't have to leave the unit. The transporter could come and take you as long as the physicians deemed it appropriate for you to leave your unit without a nurse. Um, so I ask him, okay, he tells me the drug is Versed for this patient. He also tells me that she's off the unit, right? So, okay, she's off the unit. She's not monitored. Do I need to take a monitor down with me? Do I need to stay with her? He tells me, no, she's same doctor who wrote this order for the Versed, off the unit, unmonitored. All of her continuous monitoring was discontinued earlier during rounds. No need to stay with her. No need to monitor her. Like, just give her the med. That's all she needs. Um, Again, I'm questioning, asking, do I need to, take this monitor? My gut instinct is that, yeah, I probably need to take a monitor downstairs because generally we don't give IV medications to people and leave them down there. But this isn't my patient. And I don't know much about this patient other than what I have on a scratch sheet of her and 36 other people.
Which isn't a fault on you. That's just the role of being a help all. You only
Right.
get the bare bones, and you trust that you're being delegated to appropriately.
Right. You know, I asked the questions that I thought I needed to ask. At the
Mhm.
same time, I get a call from my charge nurse. She says, hey, there's a patient in the ER that needs a swallow evaluation. Again, it's the day after Christmas. Things are a little short staffed. So, speech therapist might take a little bit to get down there. This is not a critical care patient. They are going to be a floor order patient, but they are going to need to be evaluated for their swallowing because do they need IV meds or do they need pills? Do we need to get a special diet? Right? We need to be able to get meds and fluids into this patient as quickly as possible. And in order to do that, we need a specialized swallowing evaluation, which only the neuro ICU nurses or the speech language pathologist could do for you. So we would help out on occasion and go down and do that to support our ER staff and make sure, again, we had good continuity of care. So this was an opportunity for my student to do, or my new graduate nurse to do this skill that it's important. Swallowing is super important when you're dealing with neuro people. So it's one of those things you had to check off so many times. Hey, go get your stuff. This is what we're going to do. I go to the medication dispensing cabinet. I look up for Charlene Murphy. I'm looking for the Brissette. It isn't there. Get off the phone. I'll call back. Hey, can't find this drug. Is this a verbal order? Did you put it in? Did you see it? He says, no, it's already in. It's not a verbal order. I've already acknowledged it. You know, it's there on the MAR. Okay, cool. And I think I may or may not have asked him a second time about the monitoring. I feel like I did, but sometimes, you know, I can't exactly know that for sure. Um,
Mhm.
I hung up the phone with him, went back to the medication dispensing cabinet again, still not there. Logged out, went to an empty patient room, pulled up the MAR. There's the drug. I can see it. Versed, 1 to 2 milligrams is needed for anxiety for PET scan. 1 milligram is not enough. You can repeat the second dose. So I scribbled that all down on like an empty lab bag. We had locked supply cabinets in every room. So I pulled out a lab bag, some syringes, like some saline flushes, a blunt tip needle, some alcohol swabs, shoved it all in there, wrote the order on the outside of the bag. And I could also see in the last 24 hours or so before that, she'd gotten Versed for another scan, probably an MRI. And so again, Versed is not the first drug of choice that we would have given. If a patient was leaving by themselves, you would have had something by mouth. That's the, you know, let's give you something like a Xanax for that.
If they're going to be
If
unmonitored,
they're going to be
yeah,
unmonitored, right, let's give you something oral.
yeah.
For us, with our patients that we would take down, we did lots of MRIs with our stroke patients and lots of CT scans. Ativan would have been our first line drug of choice. So why they didn't choose Ativan, I didn't know. I didn't ask. This again, it's not my patient, but I can see, and I'm building assumptions in my head that I can see she's gotten Versed again for a scan in the previous 24 to 48 hours. This must be the drug
Mhm.
of choice for this patient for whatever reason. I don't know.
Sure.
That's what they decided. So I'm basing assumptions. I'm building a story in my mind, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
I log out. I grab a sticker from her chart out of the notebook at the front desk. I put it on the back of like a yellow post-it and shoved it on the back of my badge reel and put the other stuff in my pocket and went back to the medication dispensing cabinet. Again, medication dispensing cabinet is in a very busy hallway. It's not taped off. There's no signs that say don't get distracted. It's not in an empty, it's not in a room. It's not
Mhm.
locked up by itself. It is in the center of the busiest hallway of our unit. Patient rooms are over here, a nutrition cabinet, a supply room, the room where our mobile CT unit, the charge nurse desk, offices here, a busy double bank elevator. Patients, family members, staff are flowing through here. There's a monitoring station over here. It's busy. It's busy.
Yeah.
Of the three we all have, they're all out in the open. This one is the busiest location. So I'm back here again, and I say all that to say it's not making an excuse, but I can certainly recall having conversations or brief interactions with people, both while I was pulling meds and while they were pulling meds.
Hmm.
Brief interactions in passing. Hey, such and such needs this. Okay, cool. Right. Instead of that, what we're really supposed to do, which is be focused on that one very specific task. And we
I
all know
mean, in
why.
my experience, even when it is in a locked room and has the red tape that says "Do not disturb" around it, the That's where you talk about your weekend plans. When you're pulling
That's
up
where you take
meds. Like,
shots of
so,
Red Bull at 3
yeah,
a.m. while you're like, I
right.
gotta stay awake, you
So
know?
all the more so when it's in a busy hallway. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. It's one more, it's all the more opportunities for that to,
Uh-huh.
It's the water
for there
cooler.
to be that. So I'm there, I'm logging back in for the third time. This nutrition cabinet is like behind me over here. I say cabinet, it's like a little indention in the hallway where you get your ice strips, your water, like the
Mhm.
thickener packets, straws, spoons, all the things. And so that's where my orientee is. He's, I think he's got his checklist by now. He's grabbing the stuff over there. I'm making sure he's got what he needs. And I'm, you know, again, can't find this medication for Miss Murphy. Not under her routine drugs, not under her PRN drugs, and not under her stat drugs. It's not there. So I make the decision to utilize the override function because that's the fourth option. That's the only other option I have. I've looked 2 other times. Now this is the third time I can't find it. Let's talk really quickly about this override. Okay.
Yes,
So
please.
we launched Epic, which is actually what we launched was eStar, and I'll sum it up like this. eStar means Epic plus Star Browser. Star Browser was Vanderbilt's proprietary electronic health record system built by them for them. Vanderbilt's Gold Star, right? Star Browser.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you'd never worked at Vanderbilt prior to 2017, you would not know what Star Browser was. Star Browser was Vanderbilt's own software system for charting. So when we decided we're going to put Epic in, the folks said we want to keep some really cool features that we like about Star Browser, and it needs to integrate with Epic. So Epic and Star Browser went into a broom closet, and they had a baby, and that baby came out, and that baby's name was eStar, and that's what we launched. And there's my intro to comedy. I'll be here all night. Thanks. So
Wow.
we
Bringing
launched
an
eStar.
OB.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we not only is this the 2017 version of Epic, which at the time, I don't know if it was rumored to be true or not, but they were like, this is like barely been launched very many places, especially a
Mhm.
place like Vanderbilt. You're talking about a level 1 trauma center, some of the most highly specialized care within a 6-hour radius of, multiple states, children's hospital, a psych hospital, a rehab hospital, outlying clinics,
Mhm.
tens of it's the single largest employer, the single largest private employer in the state of Tennessee.
Mhm.
That tells you how big it is as an organization. That's a massive undertaking. Years in the making to plan, lots of training, lots of work, lots of, front end work to try to make this successful.
That
And
baby had a long gestation.
that baby had a long
Uh-huh.
gestation, the longest of any mammal. How long does it take a whale to have a baby? I don't know. like like like
Octopus.
a like that like a long like an orca whale having a baby. That's what I'm gonna equate it to, like an orca whale and an elephant have a baby,
This-
you know. It's so long.
That's exactly
So
what that's right where my mind went too. Yeah,
right, that's
uh-huh.
it.
That,
I knew that's what you were thinking.
yeah.
So needless to say, lots of work has gone in to make this happen, but it's still a really complex piece of software with a lot of parts that touch each other. And you're integrating things that have never been integrated before. You're
Mhm.
integrating the OR. That's never been a part of Star Browser. You're integrating the ER. That wasn't a part of Star Browser. You're integrating outlying clinics so you can see their clinic notes. That's not a part of that, right? You're integrating a lot of things that have never been happened before. Massive, 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 huge. Doesn't even begin to describe it. Okay.
Mhm.
Mostly it's working really well. But there were some things after the first couple of weeks and the kinks got worked out. There were some lingering things that we were having issues with. One in particular was the fact that for some rhyme or reason that we couldn't figure out, drug orders would occasionally not flow through the electronic system and arrive in the medication dispensing cabinet under a patient's profile. So
So
what
they,
that looked like for Charlene Murphy was that the doctor wrote the order at 2:47. Ethan saw it, acknowledged it. It went to pharmacy. It was verified and approved for pharmacy by pharmacy at 2:49 because it was a stat order.
Mhm.
And you know, we're just pharmacies like
Never populated.
everyone's done everything, and we've already had enough phone calls with people. So there's no point in me calling pharmacy. Hey, we've done that, right?
Right.
For going into almost 2 months now, we've done that. We know, everyone knows it's not there. We don't know when it's going to be there. It might take a few minutes. It might take a couple hours, but it's not going to be there until it's going to be there. And in the meantime, if you need it, you're going to have to override to get it. That was it. The other thing about the override was that may have been the exception to the rule, but overriding was also a rule. It was a design. It was an intentional, not a workaround. It was a workflow process. If you wanted to access the patient-specific drawer, so if my patient had seizures, right, and they had an IV, let's say they had some multitude of kind of seizure drugs. I can't remember. All that stuff would be compounded specifically for them, placed in the drawer. If we're bank trough, we're doing that. Your bank's going to be in the drawer. Lots of things. If it wasn't a stocked unit, if it was compounded for that patient, it was in a patient-specific drawer for their room number. If you needed to access that, you had to override. If you needed to get IV fluids from the cabinet that was now attached to the medication dispensing cabinet, before they were in the stock room, now they're over here in this medication dispensing cabinet, you had to override to get into there. If you needed to get the Ativan out of the refrigerator, you had to override to get the little key that was in the cabinet. Open the fridge, the lockbox in there, and then override to put it back.
So
these were
whether
not
unintentionally,
these were rules.
So
designs.
Those designs then created a culture of practice where overriding wasn't the red flag that
There's
some think it ought to be.
I mean, if you look at human behavioral, people who study human behavior, right? Human factors engineering, they will very clearly tell you that after you've done something 1, 2, 3 times, that third time your brain is we're lazy. Even our brains are lazy by design. It doesn't want to have to think too hard about doing something. I've already done this a bunch of times. It's filing it back there, and it's like, I don't need to focus the same amount of mental time and energy on doing this task. And you don't even think about it. It's just what your brain does. It's how your brain works. It's how it processes new information. So imagine you have this thing that's supposed to be used sparingly, only for emergent situations. Now we're having to use it as a frequent workaround for an unknown software system issue, and it's also part of our designed workflow. Absolutely, you are going to be desensitized to the risk of overriding an entire drug order and accessing whatever you want for the patient, that it could potentially be the wrong thing, right?
It's similar to the malignant hypothermia with the nurse that you said that went back and forth, grabbing the wrong medication multiple times, because quite frankly, malignant hyperthermia is rare, but so she's just got this kind of like been programmed muscle memory to get the correct things. And you, in turn, practicing this system, were programmed to just, that's what you did.
Right. And you, the more times you do something, right, your risk meter is going to decrease. As your human brain gets more comfortable and familiar with that process.
I have a quick question for you about that you said E-Star was the new EHR system. Did they have a lot of people on? So like typically when they roll out a new platform like Epic, they have a bunch of nurse informaticists.
They had busloads of little baby software engineers.
Well, informatics has really been like a buzzword the last few
they
years.
Tried to be as helpful as they could, but they were helpful with Epic. They didn't know E-Star. This was a completely different piece of software.
And what's hard is they bring in some of those people, and they aren't. as well versed at how you practice, right?
Well, and
So
we
they're
certainly had nurses. We had champion nurses. Again, Vanderbilt did a good job. I'm not saying that they did a bad job in launching this. They did a good job. We went off, they built an entire campus off site and set up huge rooms where we could go and learn and have instructional courses and all of these things and practice and ask the questions. Uh, They legitimately, they did all the things. We had nurses who went above and beyond what was required of each level of your practice. You had champion nurses, multiple champion nurses on each unit. This wasn't a problem of not understanding how to work within Epic. This was a software problem hidden in the background that someone who builds and codes software would understand how to fix. This wasn't an issue of not understanding how to utilize Epic as an EHR or how to interface with it or what the proper workflow was. We were doing all of those things. For the most part, that stuff was working pretty good. And I actually really liked it. I thought it was highly communicative. I liked how I could pull information up on my patient. I didn't have to go search now and take me 10 minutes to figure out what's happening with the OR or like, oh, hey, I think there's a stroke in the ER and figure out how to how to find this patient. It was much easier for us to do our job. Just had these little things, right? And it's little things, which I'll get to exactly why this drug order wasn't coming through. But in the meantime, we didn't know this. We didn't know this. It had been several weeks. So this is what we were doing. We were overriding. So I'm overriding. I'm talking about orienting, making sure he's got his stuff over here. When you click override, there's a couple of things that happen. The first thing you do is you have to answer a question about why you're overriding, what necessitates this. There were no options to type in specific reasoning. You had to select from like 5 or 6 pre-programmed things. Prior to that, prior to Epic, we had some ability to enter like a certain limited of characters, right? If you could specify, you could be more specific. With Epic, with eStar, all we had were options. So you can't proceed until you pick one of these. None of them applied. So you're already, you're already 0 for 2. 1, I can't find the drug, I have to override. 2, I have to select a reason to move forward because I need to get this drug. None of these reasons apply. So I'm in a lose-lose situation already. So basically, I'm lying by choosing one of these things, but I have to choose one of these things to move forward. So I selected the first one, physician at bedside.
Sounds like the opposite of a NCLEX question where you got to choose multiple choice and they're all correct.
Yeah.
You were presented with multiple choice.
None of them were appropriate. None of them were appropriate. And again, we all knew this. So pick your poison, right? The thing is, at the end of the day, I gotta pick an option because I can't move forward. That's a hard stop. I have to pick something. I need to give this patient her medication. At this point, it's been 15 minutes. The few things that I do know are that there's a limited amount of time because it's kind of a skeleton crew day. This was needed for discharge planning. So if we didn't get the scan, and she'd already gotten the she'd already gotten the tracer, the radioactive glucose.
Oh,
And I knew at that point, what minimum I knew about PET scan is you got 45 minutes to an hour to get them in the scan. So at a minimum, I'm like, I don't know how long it was between them giving the med, realizing the patient was going to be claustrophobic, making the phone call, the nurse calling the doctor calling back, her calling back down there, calling me. I don't know if it's been a minimum of 15 minutes. It could have been 30 minutes. I don't even know where PET scan is. I know where the other parts of radiology are, but I've never been to PET scan specifically. So I'm going to have to go down 6 floors, leave our tower, navigate through the pits of the emergency room, cross over, go through radiology, and find wherever PET scan is located. It's going to take me a few minutes to get there. So time is ticking, and I need to move forward. I got to choose an option. I chose the option. The next step was you have to choose between generic or name brand drugs. It's going to default to generic. I left it
Mhm.
there. I went straight into typing the word Versed, and it's all on the same side of the keyboard. So Versed, you type it in with one hand. Boom, something pops up around the right. I click it. There's no alerts. There's no counts. There's no hard stops. There's nothing else for me to acknowledge here. And if there had been, again, we're now in an electronic health record system that tracks everything. So just like all the things I told you before that were on the MAR with that override stamp, if there were anything else that were needed to be acknowledged, I would have had to have done that. I would have had to acknowledge those things. There were no warnings. There was nothing. The door pops open. I grab a vial. I throw it in the bag. I slam the door closed. I close it. We're ready. Let's go. Like we got to go. We got to get moving here.
Yeah.
Go downstairs. It takes a few minutes. I find my way to PET scan. There's Miss Murphy. When I identify her, I introduce myself, check my information against hers, tell her I'm there to give her this med. I'm looking around. I can't find a barcode scanner attached to any of these computers that are in these empty rooms around her. And then a person comes from the opposite set of double doors. It's the nuclear med tech. She confirms they don't have barcode scanning in radiology. In fact, they're actually still on paper charting in radiology.
Oh, wow.
We can touch on that later. Remind me to come back to that because I just found
Okay.
that really interesting a few weeks ago.
Okay.
So they're still on paper charting. Okay, which is again why I didn't see on the MAR what time she'd been given the radioactive tracer. I just knew
Uh,
she had. Um, so here we are. I'm like, okay, I guess I got to reconstitute this, or I guess I just have to give this and back time it later. I'll have to go back and make a note about this. I pull the meds out of my pocket. Now this is more noticing something else is different. This is in a clear vial. It's powder, white powder with a gray plastic top.
mhm.
Versed, midazolam, amber vial, light protected, liquid, orangey, yellow plastic top. Um, this is different. So now I'm out of my comfort zone in a part of the hospital I've never been in. I can't go through the processes that I would normally go through for safety precautions for administering medications, our gold standard of barcode scanning. I can't do that. I don't have that available to me. I don't know this patient. I don't know this area. Now I have this drug in my hand that doesn't look right. But I've already told the medication dispensing cabinet that I wanted Versed. So it didn't even occur to me to question that part of the process.
Mhm.
So I immediately, you're trying to figure out in your mind, rationalizing what could be different. What I can tell you is that for the 3 months prior to this, and both of you will probably recall if you were working in critical care environments, but in 2017, in like the fall of 2017, Hurricane Maria hit the island of Puerto
Yeah.
Rico, and
Yeah.
it killed like 3,600 people, and it destroyed infrastructure all across this island. Part of that infrastructure were drug manufacturing facilities that produced medications, drugs used in hospitals all across the continental United States. So if
Mhm.
you were working in the emergency department or in a critical care environment or in a really, really busy hospital, you were absolutely going to remember seeing the massive amount of changes in medications that,
Right.
different brands, things weren't available. You're substituting this for that. You're reconstituting things that you wouldn't have normally reconstituted. You're doing whatever you can, to get the
Crazy
medications through the
amounts.
patient.
Yeah.
For us, the things we reconstituted most commonly would have been IV antibiotics and
Mhm.
steroids. But it wasn't so uncommon for you to open up a pocket in a cabinet and, you know, same, but different, right? Like, here's your Benadryl. Um,
Right.
right? Different packaging, different branding, and to bounce back and forth between like, okay, we have this available as a reconstituted fluid option, or we don't. And in a hospital that big, where you go through that many medications, you can't even keep count of what's changing unit to unit because every unit is so different. You're all speaking different languages in terms of taking care of patients, right? You're using different drugs at different rates. You can't keep track of what's constantly changing. It just was. So it was just something again that we were aware of, and Okay, so I have this in my hand. Again, it's not the typical red top like you would see on your paralytics. It was gray,
Hmm.
not something you would expect. But again, things are different, right? So I glance at this, and I'm sure you talk about confirmation bias, right? If you like send an email to the wrong Sarah or something,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
enter the wrong person's grade under the wrong Joseph. When you're reading something and you have it in your mind, I've already told this machine what I wanted. I am certain that the machine would not have failed me.
Mhm.
I can tell you if I believe that it said Versed. I believe that it was Versed. If I had really stopped to more than just scan very quickly, which I'm assuming is all that I would have done, just a quick scan, the first couple of letters matched up, I would have saw that it wasn't actually Versed. Versed's not even a trade name that we use anymore. It would have been midazolam, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
clearly I didn't read. I didn't read this. I didn't pause long enough. I just made these assumptions based off of the past 3 months worth of experience, real
Hmm.
encounters with giving medications, and assumed that the machine would not have failed me. It would not have given me what I did not ask for. So this was the Versed, this was the midazolam. I flipped it over the reconstitution rates, right there. It's pretty standard. 10 mLs of fluid gives you a reconstitution rate of 1 milligram per 1 milliliter. And so I reconstituted it. She had one IV. I flushed it with like a whole, um, with a whole 10 ml, like saline flush.
Flush. Yeah.
I gave her the 1 ml, which was, the equivalent of 1 milligram of what I thought was Versed. I flushed again with a whole flush, because that's, that I was always really good about that. I'm like, that's what you're supposed to do. I want to make sure like it's getting through to you, not just stuck, right? Like you just give her
Right.
medication, like there you go. Ironically, the nuclear med tech testified like she thought that I had given the whole syringe.
He was
He
being flushed.
confused the flush
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
medication.
She thought that I had given the whole syringe. She testified to that. So when it got to, years and years later, when this baggie of evidence changed hands multiple times to the point that my fingerprints weren't even on anything inside anymore, and we got to court, there was only like 1.5 ml of fluid left to be accounted for of the wrong medication. So
Mhm.
the DA was like, "Yeah, you have 8 times the amount of the dose." And it was simply based on the fact that the fluid was no longer there in this other syringe, and the tech having saw me flush with a whole flush
Statements.
afterwards. Yeah. Again, interesting how you can see one thing and believe it's something else.
Misconstrued as in
Right.
That
Let's talk
confirmation
about
bias.
that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that even more. So the nuclear med tech who's there waiting had concerns about the patient being monitored herself. She'd called
Mm.
back upstairs. She'd talked to the primary nurse. She'd told him. He told her the same thing. He told me, no one's coming to stay with this patient. She's got orders. The same doctor wrote orders for this patient. He discontinued her monitoring. She does not have continuous monitoring. She's Q4 vitals. She's basically got floor orders. He wrote for her to be off the unit, unmonitored, without a nurse, and he also wrote for this medication. So no one's staying with the patient. No one's monitoring the patient. Um, she never mentioned any of these things to me. I didn't pick up on anything being off with that. She didn't mention them to me because she thought that the young man in his mid 20s that was standing next to me was the same young man in his mid 20s that she'd been talking to upstairs on the phone that was the primary nurse for the patient.
oh,
Ooh.
In fact, she was caught off guard that she thought he was down there because he told her multiple times that he was not available to come, but that he was sending someone. So she's thinking, which she testified to, why is he here? And why is he not doing anything? And why am I giving this medication to the patient? And why aren't either one of us staying?
Mm.
You said you couldn't come. You're sending someone. Now you
Shoot.
both came, and then you both left. You're like, no one's staying?
Well,
I did not pick that vibe up at all. Again, I'm pretty like, if I would have thought that there was something off, or if she would have even brought up the fact, hey, when are you going to stay? I can. Do you need me to? Absolutely. Nothing. Um, so just that uncomfortable lack of communication there about making assumptions. Like, we were all making assumptions.
Mhm.
We were all making assumptions about context clues, picking up information around us and telling, making the story in our head about what makes sense and why this is happening. We're all making assumptions based on what we're picking up. And so, ultimately, I didn't pick up on that. She took the patient and went one way, and so I assume she's going into the scanner. She didn't. She went into a lead line room where she sat by herself. And actually, she didn't even get to go to her scan. So I left, went to the ER. That patient wasn't there. I left my number with the charge nurse, said, hey, text me when your patient gets back. They're in a CT scan. Went back upstairs, was giving the empty, like the bag with the medication to the primary nurse to say, hey, when your patient gets back, I need you to call me. I didn't get to document it. You can keep it in this locked cabinet in your room, so it's not in my pocket as I'm going in and out of other people's rooms. It needs to be left safely there. Keep it in your room. Um, when she gets back, let me know because I need four things to document the drug. I need your patient with her armband. Epic knows the difference between a sticker and an armband. So it has to be the armband on the patient. I need her back in the room. I need the computer scanner in the room. I need myself and I need the medication. I need all four of those things in one location to document that I gave this drug. I've got to post document that. I've got to put a note in there that it was given off the unit, down in PET scan, no barcode scanning was available. And then when it's done, you and I need to waste the rest of this first set and dispose of it. Cool, cool.
Sounds right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
I'm
all
having
the
this, we're
things.
wrapping up. I'm telling him that. I'm just outside in his room, and all of a sudden, this loud, like I carry the rapid response phone, which was all of the life flight calls that Vanderbilt Life Flight managed all of both incoming, outgoing flight helicopters, but they also radio managed all of the rapid response, code blues, etc. within the hospital. So we carried this like this giant black radio, like a volunteer fire department person, like it's loud when it goes off, it's loud. So it loudly announces that there is a rapid response or a stat event regarding a patient in PET scan. I hear it, he hears it, the case manager talking to two women in the hallway hear it. That's her family member. Those are her daughter-in-laws. They hear it. They're concerned. I'm concerned. He's concerned. We're all concerned. Try to call, no answer. Try to call again, no answer. I said, you know what? I'm going to go tell our charge nurse. We're going to try one more time. And if we don't get an answer, we will walk downstairs and make sure that this is or is not your patient. Because I know that there were not a lot of people down there. There's a percentage of a chance that it could be our patient. If it is our patient and it's actually a true stat code event, she can't come back to the step down bed. She's got to come back to her critical care bed. We're going to have to move her back upstairs and make sure that that's happening. So we're just going to walk down here and check. We're going to get you an answer and we're going to make sure that, this patient's okay. We walked down there. It was, in fact, our patient. By this point, she had a pulse. It was thready, but, she had I think when the call come in, I listened to the recording of that. Like she had a faint pulse, but she wasn't breathing and she wasn't responsive. Um, it was actually another transport agent that found her because when the nuclear med tech thought that no one was going to be able to come to give her the medication for her anxiety and her claustrophobia, they'd went ahead and put in for a transport agent to come and pick Miss Murphy back up and take her back upstairs. So that
Oh,
transport agent was actually there and would have taken her back upstairs. But she hadn't even gotten her scan yet. This I think about 15 minutes had passed roughly between the time I'd like left the unit, probably at the time I'd given her the meds and made it back upstairs before this was called. So certainly, even with a small dose of the wrong drug, could have been long enough for her to, been left without oxygen. Um, and again, at this point, I'm not aware that I've given the wrong med yet. We're downstairs. We move her back upstairs. We put her in a critical care bed. We spend the next hour. I'm in the room helping her new nurse. We put in an art line, a central line. One of them failed. We had to put in a second one. We put her on the vent. We took x-rays. We did blood work. Sterile procedures were happening. So her family was outside in a waiting area. The charge nurse was giving updates. We were wrapping up with all of that and getting ready to bring the family back in. I had like a third set of labs I was sending. The critical care team's over in the corner having a conversation. Was it a PE? Is it a heart attack? She had a worsening in her brain bleed. What do we need to do? Do we need a CT scan? Let's start with that. I walk out of the room to send the labs. The primary nurse from before approaches me and he says, hey, is this what you gave the patient? And I look and there's the bag and there's my handwriting. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I gave the patient. And he says, it's not Versed, it's vecuronium. That is when I became aware, probably a good hour, maybe more after I'd given this medication. That's when I became aware that this was the wrong drug and immediately aware that this was really, really bad, right? So I tell him, give that to the charge nurse, let her know what's happened. I send the blood, I go back in the room. I tell our critical care team, hey, remember when I told you guys that I gave a milligram of Versed downstairs, but if you're looking through her MAR, or if you're looking through her chart at all, you're not going to see it because I didn't get a chance to document it. I've like probably said it twice, once downstairs and once back upstairs. That wasn't actually Versed that I gave. It was a milligram of vecuronium. Team's aware.
I just want to pause right there and just highlight that your very first response, your reaction was to be fully transparent and to have the courage to say, I messed up.
I got to go
and
tell
messed
these
up in a
people.
big way.
If there's something that can be done, then we need to do it, right? Like this person's life is on the line. How could I not? It didn't even cross my mind to not say something.
Your reaction wasn't to save your own skin.
No.
It was still towards the care of the patient that you were a part of.
Absolutely. That's my job, but like that's my ethically as a human being. Like, if that were me or my loved one, better freaking say something. I need to know, right? Like they need to know. You can only make good decisions about taking care of people if you have the right information, right? Like, yeah, I have to tell them. They have to know. So I went immediately in. I told them, I told the charge nurse, I told the new primary nurse, and at that point, I pretty sure I left my orientee somewhere else, and I went to my nurse educator's office. From there, I had a very emotional breakdown. Long story short, I had several conversations, quick phone calls with people who were not in the unit. My manager, our associate nursing officer, risk management. I talked to those people on the phone. It took me several hours. I wrote a really detailed incident report and I left for the day. And that was the last day that I worked there. I had 7 days off scheduled already. And I was supposed to return to work on the 4th of January. I got a call on the 2nd saying, can you come in for a meeting on the 3rd? I was terminated. I also did find out in that time frame. I called the next morning after this event. So this happened the 26th. I called at like 5 a.m. on the 27th to ask how the patient was doing, and the charge nurse let me know that she had passed in the middle of the night. So ultimately, her neurological exam was consistent with myoclonic jerking, anoxic brain injury. Their testing showed that she did not have brain function. And so the family made the decision to, withdraw supportive care, and she passed away shortly after midnight, 1:30, the next morning. Yeah. So we don't even have to go into the whole termination part. I was terminated, but let's go back really quickly and let's talk about some of those things that I learned, because this is important for your students to understand. All of those other things I told you were important to understand, but something I wouldn't have even considered at the time is that I could have gotten the wrong medication from the machine. And I didn't know why we were having these delays in our drug orders, or, why I couldn't find this medication there. having had the opportunity to look at medical records and lots of information, because this went to a criminal trial, I had access to all that. I had a lot of time to really dig through and reflect and search for answers. This medication was ordered at 2:47 p.m. by the provider, verified and approved by pharmacy at 2:49 p.m. Now, prior to Epic, I'm not sure how things were, but when Epic launched, the way this system was set up was that when you ordered a medication for a patient, first ed, and it was verified and approved by pharmacy, which it was at 2:49, that drug is removed from the list of things that are available on the override profile for that patient. So you have all drugs A to Z, but everything that's ordered is removed from the override.
Falls off once it's been taken.
It falls off once it's been ordered, because why should it be over there?
Oh, I see.
You need to give it from the profile.
Override.
Not override it, because overriding it's not an order. You can't document on that or anything. So they want you to pull it from the profile, from the patient profile. So it's removed from the override, should be on the profile, right? Because that's the last thing. Pharmacy verifying and approving it is the last thing, and then it's supposed to show up. The start time for this drug order was 3 p.m.
That's why it wasn't in. Were you trying to pull that medication prior to 3 p.m. because the start time hadn't populated it into the?
Do you want to know what time I went back and pulled that medication? The third time that I went back after doing all that other stuff, calling, searching, checking the mark, getting all the supplies, the third time I come back and actually pulled the drug under override.
2:59.
2:59 and 49 seconds.
11 seconds later, and it would have populated.
Later, the drug would have been there. What I'm telling you is that there was an 11-minute period from 2:49 when pharmacy verified this drug until exactly 3 p.m. when there was no access to midazolam. First ed, whatever, you could call it whatever you want, it wasn't going to be there. 11 minutes.
Which happened to be the 11 minutes that you were trying to get midazolam.
Which 11 seconds prior, had I waited another 12 seconds, it'd have been there. That's a significant amount of time when you're talking about stat orders for a patient. 11 minutes is a long time.
Yeah.
Imagine if this were life or death. And we'd order this drug and it wasn't available, right? And it all made sense to me. Now, I don't know at what point they figured this out. I figured it out, and I told my attorney, and my attorney didn't get it, right? He didn't get it. Unless you work in healthcare and you deal with orders and you understand it, it doesn't mean anything. You say the order was written at 2:47 and the start time was 3 p.m. To someone who doesn't understand that, they don't know what that means.
11 minutes can be an eternity when you're moving fast.
Yeah, I'm like, and so the start time was 3 p.m. because that was Epic trying to be helpful. So I figured this out too. It tries to be helpful. It's like when you're ordering pizza online and you've done it before and it tries to fill in the blanks for you, like pre-default, like, do you want to pick it up as soon as possible? 15 minutes, 30 minutes, right? You know, it defaults. You can change it, but it's trying to be helpful and fill in as many blanks as possible so that if you are rushing through this, it's trying to fill in what can be pre-filled in. So the start time defaulted on a 15-minute increment. Had they wrote the order at 2:44, the default start time would have been 2:45. But because they wrote it at 2:47, the next 15-minute increment was 1500.
Rounded up
that's what it defaulted to. Now the provider can change that, but if you don't, then that's the start time. I would have thought maybe it would have been more intuitive to have a stat order have the start time of the time
when it was written.
Right.
Sure.
To me, that would make more sense.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that in the past, that's probably how it was, because we never encountered this before. We never
So that
encountered
goes
this
back to
beforehand.
the problem is way over here where the ones and the zeros are programmed.
Correct. Right.
So,
That's being done by people who are super smart, but they're not clinical. So they
Mhm.
don't understand what this looks like from a clinician's aspect. And I can tell you, even pharmacy doesn't understand what this looks like from the nurse's aspect. You know, the med safety officer and I testified at the board of nursing hearing, and I brought this up, and she's like, no, but once we verify and approve the drug, it doesn't matter what the start time is. It automatic that we're the final send, we send it through.
mhm,
Again,
mhm.
maybe that's how it was before then. That may have been how it was with Star Browser, but it wasn't how it was in this system.
The E-Star, baby.
Yes. Little things like this.
I
I would have
agree.
never considered this. I would have never considered that this amount of, information way back when someone programming zeros and ones would have had this kind of effect. I didn't see myself as part of a very complex, adaptive, and fast moving and vulnerable system. But healthcare is a very complex, adaptive, and vulnerable system. It is people working together with many different kinds of technologies, all kinds of different plans, and we are, you know, we are dodging and punching, and like we're doing things, and it's all over the place, and no one patient, no one day, no one shift, no one unit is ever the same. Everything's constantly changing, right? That's why we can't automate healthcare.
Mm.
Right? Because of the zeros and ones. How many times would the zeros and ones automation of healthcare stopped dead in its tracks before, let's say I had given the right drug and the outcome would have been good? How many times did I have to do not a 0-1, but think and move around in order to make that happen? And that was just one piece of my
It's
day.
Yeah.
one instance.
One piece of my day that wasn't even that abnormal. How many times do we have to bob and weave and move around? We want people in healthcare to, you celebrate being adaptable and being innovative, right? But I think when you look at corporate America, when you look at leadership, and Brene Brown and some other people talk about this, who talk about leadership, we are in an innovation debt. Love
I
Brene Brown.
love Brene Brown. Oh
Love
yeah.
Brene Brown. Brene
Yeah.
Brown. Ugh, love Brene Brown. This,
Her
yes,
as well.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
hard. Love her. Lots of people are talking about how we are in a creative crisis. The workforce is not creating. The workforce is not being innovative. You know why the workforce is not being innovative? We're barely getting by doing what we're doing. And we're not coming to you with all our cool tricks and hacks. One, because you don't believe it or value it, and two, if we're being adaptive and innovative and something bad happens, well, now you're me. Now you're being fired.
Mm.
Now you're
Risk.
being reported to the board of nursing, and you know,
It's reactive and punitive, not
right, right.
generative.
Yeah, and so this is why you don't have people in your workforce coming forward and saying, "Yeah, like let's let me show you this cool thing, this cool workaround that I've found." Who's listening to just the nurse? I'm here to tell you, speak up, friend. If you're working around something, you need to be telling people about it.
Say
And
something, say something.
there is always the option for you to say no. There's always the option for you to say no. Nope, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Your policy clearly states that this is how I need to do it. I cannot do that. For the safety of my patient, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Not only I cannot do that, I
Right.
won't do it. I'm not willing to put my patient or my practice at risk by deviating from your policies? Because if I do that, if I deviate from your policy and I deviate from the Nurse Practice Act, that's what I'm going to be held to. And you don't have to be the smartest and most competent nurse. All you have to do is just know your policies and understand what the Nurse Practice Act says you can and cannot do. And just say, I would like for our younger nurses to understand that you can absolutely say no. If you have a question and you're questioning that provider and you don't understand, say something. Because if you do the thing anyway, because the provider's like, well, I said to do it, you think that provider is going to be the one standing there answering to the bad outcome? No, it's going to be you. No one had a gun to your head. No one told you to do that. Right? That is why I take full accountability. And when I say accountability, that means I can stand in front of you and I can tell you my story. That's what accountability is. I can repeat this back to you. I can tell you what I did and I can tell you why. That's why I do that, because I know I made choices along the way, assumptions. This is the story that I was building in my head. This is how I was operating. I can tell you why I did what I did that led to this. That's what accountability looks like. Accountability is giving someone the opportunity to account for their actions, to tell you their story. It's not saying, I'm, as a leader or a manager, I'm going to hold you accountable by writing you up, firing you, reporting you, putting you in jail. That's not accountability. That's reactiveness.
Reactivity.
Right. It's not the thing that's going to move anyone forward, right? So what I think accountability looks like is, in the moment, me telling you, hey, I'm not going to do that, and this is why.
So, RaDonda, I am, first off, thank you. Thank you for that.
I'm sure it cleared up a lot of things, right?
Like,
And
I can't imagine that. I don't know your feelings about. I can't imagine it's comfortable to recount that, but I just appreciate your like forthrightness and honesty and accountability for your action. That's actually one of our student learning outcomes is on our SBT is students have to reflect on their accountability on each clinical that they experience. And boy, that I don't know if there's ever will be a more defining definition than you just provided right there.
accountability is like a dirty word these days. It's just been tainted. You know what I mean? It's like Panama City used to be really nice, and then we just trashed it. You know what I mean?
So goes the
I
word.
grew up in South Alabama. I know what all of those beaches used to look like, and now, they're just not the same, right?
It's a
That's
mess.
accountability. The definition of accountability is to account for.
To account for.
To account
To
for.
tell
To
your
tell your
story.
story.
Uh-huh.
To
I
recount, right?
I really want I really want to just before I lose this, I want to make sure that I've all of the system, how the system through your story, I've been taking notes on the system and how it kind of failed you. You had a new EHR system, the eStar.
Mhm,
You were a resource RN and you had minimal info on the patient you were providing this medication.
mhm,
You had the override that had been consistently utilized to remove medications.
mhm,
You had competing priorities. You had a swallow study awaiting you in the ER and a time crunch with the tracer that had already been administered. You were precepting a new orientee nurse who was with you at bedside, which provides a little distraction. You removed the medication from a busy Pyxis location in the middle of the hallway. You had no access to a barcode scanner in PET scan/radiology. You were in a foreign land that you were unfamiliar with, being in radiology. You had the confirmation bias with the machine that didn't have the Versed that was available because it had been ordered within that particular time frame. Um, am I missing? I mean, it's just a few. Am I missing anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, and then, you have the whole zeros and ones, the whole timestamp, the safety precaution of that being removed prior to removed from override prior to an actual start time of a medication. Pharmacy thinking that that was pushing it right through, which are star browser previous ways and not, current ways. And, to add on top of that, Tony, there was a list of recommendations put together and published in July of 2016. So about a year and a half prior to this event. ISMP is the Institute for Safe Medication Practices.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've probably heard, of them before, but they write a lot of standards around safe medication practices. That's their job. They research how we receive and give medication. They look at things that have gone wrong, and they try to, write policies and information and articles to be helpful about, understanding how to administer medications safely. So they'd written this in July of 2016, this this set of recommendations and research accompanying it called Paralyzed by Mistakes. And it was looking at 24 or 28 different scenarios, actual drug errors where a paralytic was given instead of something else.
Mm.
2 of those were VEC given instead of Versed.
Mm.
And this was a list of best practices and recommendations that were written 18 months prior to this event that included things that Vanderbilt did eventually put into place, like well over a year after this event, when they got in trouble for Medicare and Medicaid fraud and for not, doing a whole bunch of things. They actually did go back and make changes then, and they put some of these things in place. Some of those things were obviously all of those list of recommendations were compiled based on information that was learned from actual drug errors involving paralytic agents. 24 or 28. And I want to say probably a lot of them died. Because paralytic agents are that one class of drug. It is such a small percentage of medication errors. Like that one little class is so small, but it carries the highest fatality rate, over 80%. If you are inadvertently given a paralytic instead of the drug you were supposed to, 80% chance or more that you're going to die or be, you're going to die. So yeah, 28 different people came forward to talk about these exact things. And this whole list of information and these recommendations came out of it. That's what it looks like to evaluate when things go wrong. That's the kind of information that, had someone at Vanderbilt been paying attention to, would have saved Charlene Murphy's life. If those things had already been put in place.
In saying that, all right, so, and, so these things that we just discussed and you shared about the system and all those bullet points that we went down of things working against you in this scenario, did anyone at Vanderbilt, what did they have to say about that? Did they have your back? Did anyone have your back? Or was it just
Vanderbilt didn't have very much to say. They terminated me. When they did that, they were very clear. The associate nurse officer who terminated me was very clear in saying a few different things. Number one, she was very clear in saying this did not have anything to do with the outcome. This was not because of the outcome. This is because you failed to follow the medication administration practices. You failed to follow the 5 rights of medication administration. That's why you're being terminated. An adjust culture model that would look like, is this person trainable? Like, is this something that we think is going to happen again? Like, can we retrain this person? And so I guess within a matter of like 5 days, the decision was made that it was not something they could retrain me on and that they were going to terminate. that was a decision that they made. She was also very clear in stating that this was a reportable event to the Board of Nursing, but that this would be reported by them sending a copy of the termination letter that I was going to be given that day and sign. And that termination letter had been written in a very benign way. I just thought it was an odd choice of words. But that stuck with me. Like, there were a few things that I could still in my mind hear her saying, and saying that it was written in a very benign way is one of them. When I look back at it, yes, the termination letter is very benign. It says a serious safety event happened, not a sentinel event. A serious safety event happened. This nurse failed to follow medication administration policies, including verifying the 5 rights of medication administration, which is reportable under Tennessee Code annotated blah, 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 to the Board of Nursing. She has been fired. She is forever banned and ineligible for rehire at any Vanderbilt facilities. That was it. So yeah, no mention of a sentinel event, no mention of the type of drug error, very benignly written.
Broad and benign.
So, and one other thing I had asked was, at this point, the worst thing has already happened. The patient's dead. That's the worst possible thing that could have happened. I can't do anything to change that. So now I have to think about, what do I need to do moving forward? What does this look like? Is there going to be legal action? If there is legal action, obviously, it's going to come to Vanderbilt first. You guys would be involved. And because I was an employee working here, am I represented by your lawyers? How does that work? And it was very clearly made known that that was not going to be the case. No, you did not follow the policies and procedures. So we will not be representing you in any kind of legal capacity. You're on your own. Basically, it's going to be a few months before you hear from the Board of Nursing. So you're free to just go and get another job. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. That was the last time I spoke to anyone at Vanderbilt in a capacity, related to being an employee or really this event. I have since spoken to people who still work there, and in 2023, the chief pharmacy officer and the med safety officer wasn't the chief pharmacy officer at the time of this event, but is the current. But the med safety officer was and is still the med safety officer, and she actually had to testify against me at the Board of Nursing hearing and at the criminal trial, which was not an experience that I don't want to have been in her shoes, right? Because it isn't something that she wanted to do any more than I wanted to have to, do either. So she and I got a chance to actually share our experience at a pharmacy conference, and then later we sat down and talked. And that's actually how I was able to confirm some of these things about the software and about the timing, because I only had my assumptions to go on and what I believed that the paper trail was showing me, but I couldn't confirm that. So I sat down at lunch, talked to them. I told them, I said, hey guys, I need to lay this out. I need to know, because this is what I believe happened. And one person was able to verify one portion of things, and the other was able to verify the other, again, things that they hadn't thought about, that hadn't crossed over. And I sat here and I connected the whole picture, and we all just sat there in silence. Like, wow.
Yeah, because for you to figure that out, for you to figure out that delay, that 11-minute delay there from where it was verified from pharmacy to where it populated into the Pyxis, the medication dispenser, the dispensing machine, that's something that has to happen over and over and over again until you're like, why is this not populating? And until you finally put the pieces together and recognize what's happened. Now, what bothers me a little bit is that in nursing, we are constantly teaching and educating and looking at trends. Right. So what's trending? Let's trend their blood pressure. Oh, it looks low. Is this where they've been? And, so trending anything that's going on. So, this is one particular event that occurred. Is there anything that, I'm just going to ask this to you. Is there anything that, that was, highlighted earlier before this event because, you're the resource nurse, you're doing a lot of things. Were there any trends to this?
Well, I mean, the trend for overriding was certainly just
I,
well known.
trends for you in
It was
particular. Had
it was
you,
accepted. Oh, for me, like as far as my practice goes,
yeah, like was there, I mean, it sounds like,
I mean, certainly
there's,
the overriding was a trend. It was a trend in the wrong direction, but it was a very
that's
clear
for
trend
everybody though. But like,
for
what about you?
everybody.
But
Yeah,
what about you in particular? Like, was there any like, misdocumentation or,
oh,
things
I
that
see
may
what
be
you
like,
mean.
like
Um,
something that would be like, oh, we're gonna identify, or is it just this one event that, you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah. So, I think I had one write-up during the time I was working there, and I'd been late like a few times in a short amount of within a couple of months. Um, I don't know. I'm sure it was like weather related, and also like being on night shift was hard. You know, getting to work on time when you drive an hour plus away, and then you have to like park in a parking lot and get a shuttle 6 blocks, and then walk inside. So like you know, back in my early days, punctuality was not really, you know, getting to work on time was I was like right in there. So there was certainly an adjustment there, and that was the only thing that I'd been written up for. Other than that, they monitored things like barcode scanning. Obviously, that was super important, and they wanted you to be at like 99 to 100% on barcode scanning.
Yep.
Um, they monitored things like what what did it look like when you pulled narcotics? Did you pull the right one? Did you waste the right amount? Did you check all those boxes? Did you do your pain assessment scales after a certain amount of like no, I didn't have problems like that. I'm sure there was the occasional one off. I'm not saying it was perfect, but when it come to my documentation, I was a classic overcharter.
Yeah, your
Like
your
charting
details
by
are
exception was not,
incredible.
everyone was like, you can chart by exception with Epic. And I'm like, no. Mm-mm. Because I was taught if you didn't document it, you didn't do it. And also, I am the kind of person I'm very curious, and I'm very detail oriented when it comes to like hyper focusing on this big picture. Um, I want to know, like, I don't just want to know that they pooped. Did it float? Was it smelly? Was it soft? Was it hard? Was there blood in it?
Oh, speaking my language.
You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, I need to know. Did they have corn and chili the day before? Like, I need to know all the things. I'm not the
Key assessment
person.
pieces.
Look, I can't work in the ER. I could maybe now I could. Maybe now I could. I've been like scathed enough that I could probably turn on a mean face and be like, you know,
Yes.
That was good. That was
um,
good.
but I am a full detailed critical care nurse at heart. I need to be where people are very sick, and I need to be accountable. I need to know the story of all the details. I need to know all of it, right? You're not going to get in and out. You're not going to get the 2-minute report with me. I'm sorry. That's not who I am. I need more information. And so, yeah, my charting was like above and beyond, always. Probably more information that was necessary, but regardless, it was there. And in fact, the when I was actually working for HCA a couple of years later, I went to the CVICU. I did start. It took like 6 months before I could actually convince myself to go back to work. But I started working at HCA's Centennial Hospital, which is another big hospital in downtown Nashville, in the CVICU. And the once I was actually arrested, they put me on administrative leave per my request. I was like, I can't. I'm happy to like go work in a broom closet in the basement, like, but
Mhm.
I can't be anywhere in public, but I did sign this commitment to, to work. And as long as I have a license or I'm able to do so, I'm happy to continue to do something. But I can't be doing patient care, and I will not be seen by patients or family members. You can't put me anywhere in a unit where patient care is happening, or anything. I will not do anything regarding direct patient care, because I don't want to put anyone in an uncomfortable or risky situation, let alone myself. My face is all over the news. So they actually did their own internal investigation, for over a few weeks. They read all of the CMS reports that had come out, all the information that was publicly available, and then they looked at my current work history with them. And I will never forget Pat Price, which was the director of critical care. She sat down when we had our HR meeting with her and the CNO and my manager and the HR lady, at which I was certain I was going to get terminated again. Like, I brought donuts as a parting gift. Because I was really sure they were going to be like, you got this, but like, it's okay, go ahead, right? Like, you're off the hook, right? That was not what happened. She said, I have not seen such detailed charting. I can't even tell you the last time I saw documentation this detailed.
Mm.
Oh, okay, thank you. And then the CNO told me about the first time that she ever made a mid error. The first time. And then my manager was like, the patients love you. Like we don't have any reason like to not have you stay here. So they did. They gave me a job doing something else. But yeah, that was never, that was never a thing. Documenting was never a thing. I didn't have things I missed off on. It was just a matter of, awareness. It was naivety. I trusted this. I trusted the system that I was working in. I trusted what was happening around me. I trusted the software. I trusted that these things were incapable of failing me. And the reality is that they're not. And it's not to say anything bad about Vanderbilt or anywhere else. It's just a reality that I don't think young nurses understand. The system is absolutely capable of failing you.
I appreciate you sharing the story of HCA doing their own investigation, and there's almost a little bit of a redemptive theme that I
Yeah.
wish Vanderbilt would have not. I know you have nothing bad to say about Vanderbilt, but
And I'm not going to say anything that isn't true. Did they handle it poorly? Yeah. Yeah. The silence was deafening, and this had a major effect on them. They too suffer the consequences for their actions. Again, the amount of people that work for them, how do you think those people felt about their jobs?
Right.
How do you think they felt about being supported by their facility? How do you think the patients felt? People who drive by smaller hospitals because they need specialty care at Vanderbilt, how do you think they felt? Right? It was an embarrassment on their reputation, which still currently is there because people are still talking about it. They don't really want to talk about it. I'm sure they've done a lot of work to try to move forward, but their culture obviously took a massive hit because, everyone watched as they kind of sat in silence and nothing, in terms of action being taken against them, they were not held to a legal accountability in terms of their Medicare and Medicaid fraud. They jumped through hoops. They had a bunch of things to do to meet their compliance. And then once that happened, that was it. No one was charged with Medicare and Medicaid fraud. No one was charged with falsifying a death certificate. No one was charged with failing to report her death to the Social Security Administration or to the IRS. The Department of Health did their own facilities investigation. Nothing happened to their facility license. I took the brunt of those investigations. They all shifted towards me. And the silence on their part Because if they really were to have said something, I think they would have felt like it would have come back on them, that like, well, you had a role in this. So I don't know, why they made the decisions to do what they did. I just hope that that's not the way that they're currently doing things, that they've learned some lessons. But it was very disappointing to see that they handled it that way. And to say that HCA did a better job than Vanderbilt, it's kind of ironic because everyone has a
Yeah.
horror story about HCA. And I will say the people that worked there at the time, those really good people who made that facility what it was and who were sitting there with me at that table, they're not there anymore. But it was that group of people and, that hospital, they actually did give me a chance. And for another 2 years,
Again.
I kept my license. I was able to actually perform in a role that allowed me to use the experience, the attention to detail, the license that I had, and in a way, prove to myself that I still had value. I could still be of service. I didn't have to. In fact, the last 2 years, I worked from home in my pajamas. I did bed management for the largest hospital in the TriStar division. That's what we did. We did bed management. And then I helped train a bunch of new people when TriStar decided that we didn't just want to do it at Centennial. We wanted to move it to a transfer center and then pick up doing bed management for all the other hospitals in the TriStar division. The four of us had to train all of those people and write what that was going to look like. And then when COVID happened, I was the one that took the stuff home and said, I'll figure out how to set it up and report back to you guys. And then, figure out how to get us out of a transfer center where we're sitting 4 feet away from each other in cubicles all day and sharing headsets. Like, we'll figure that out. It gave me a purpose, and I'm really grateful. I needed that. Had that not happened, the story I think would have been a little different for sure. But at least give me a few years where I know that, I was able to still contribute, which is, again, it's absolutely something that Vanderbilt could have done. It's something that any hospital can do, because all that happened is that I learned a really important lesson, an invaluable lesson, and I was a better nurse because of it. And Vanderbilt nor the patients there got to benefit from that. They just said, you got to go, but you can go work anywhere else, right? And so we just shifted the problem around. Like, really, what does that mean? If I can go work anywhere else, why can't I work here for you? Why can't I go down to the supply closet and be of use there? Why can't I help you with your education stuff? Why can't I help you in the clinic? My manager advocated for them to move me to the clinic. She said, you're losing a really good nurse.
Well, that brings me to a question that I wanted to ask. You had mentioned the paralyzed by mistake report by ISMP, which says that the event with Charlene Murphy is tragic, but it's not unique. That's not the thing that put RaDonda Vaught on the map. What put you on the map is the precedent was set for a criminal conviction for a med error. And so given that precedent that's been set, and the fact that even before that precedent was set, Vanderbilt did not support you at all. After you came forward, you were courageous, you were transparent, you were forthright with what happened. How do we encourage new nurses going out into the workforce to display those attributes of
how do you, knowing the risks,
right
how do you, so here's what I would say. I tell you all of those things that went wrong and the decisions that I made about working around, overriding, not trusting my gut. I should have trusted my gut right from the get-go when it came time to grab a monitor. What's the worst that could have happened? I would have just stayed with her for a few minutes. Guess what? The ER guy wasn't even there anyway. I would have to come back. No one was waiting on me to get back upstairs. It wasn't even really about that as a time thing. I would have been happy to stay. I could have just done it. I took someone else's word instead of trusting my own gut. And I think that's important because no matter how experienced you are or inexperienced you have these gut instincts and you have basics, right? NCLEX is all about the basics. Monitoring a patient after you give them an IV drug that's going to make them sleepy, it's kind of basic, right? That was a basic fundamental thing that I felt like I needed to do, and I took someone else's word that I didn't need to do it. I had worked with that nurse the entire time that I'd worked at Vanderbilt, but he'd only been a nurse for 6 months. He worked as a patient care tech in our unit while he was in nursing school. And then because he was so familiar with the neuro ICU and he was a wicked smart guy, he got hired into the nurse residency program for the neuro ICU. He was a great fit, right? But he'd only been licensed for 6 months. But I had this established working relationship with him for 26 months. I didn't trust my gut because I thought, oh, well, he knows, right? He's been here long enough. He knows.
This role. Yeah.
What I would tell you is you can always trust your gut, right? The most basic things that you can do are going to be the ones that are going to catch you off guard, right? If the complicated stuff will come, the basic things that you can do will be the ones that are going to protect you and your patients. Don't forget your basic things. Don't forget the basic stuff. Look at the patient, not the monitor, right?
Right.
Reevaluate, reassess, travel pack when you need to, that kind of thing. But it all boils down to very basic things. Don't forget your basic principles of care and trust your gut. If your gut is telling you something doesn't feel right, say something, right? That's really where we have to get into. Had I said something about the amount of times that I was overriding unnecessarily, maybe it would have been on someone else's radar to be like, God, we keep getting these we know it's happening, but like we keep getting these incident reports. Leadership has to make decisions to make changes about things, right? They can't make changes. They can't make improvements if they don't have a continuous input of information. And it is going to take you extra time and extra effort, but that is your responsibility. There's a lot of nurses out there that are overworked and stressed, and they are not going to take the time in this current environment to do that. They're getting better about it, certainly, but that's not necessarily going to be the example that's going to be set for you. The example that's going to be set for you is, here's how you're supposed to do it. Here's the real world, kid.
Right? Framing it.
And you have to say, I understand that that's the real world, but if I make a mistake here, that person's not going to be held up responsible. You're the only one that's going to answer for your actions, and it's potentially going to be someone's life at the other end. So who cares about you answering for your actions? Someone could be really harmed by that. You have to think about basics, and you have to think about, I'm not willing to step out of what is an established safety zone. This isn't a comfort zone. It's established safety rules. They're there for a reason. These rules are there for a reason. They're there because people have died in the past or they've been seriously hurt in the past. And just because you don't think it's going to happen to you or you don't think it's going to happen in your unit, I sure as fuck didn't think it was going to happen to me. But it did. It is absolutely possible that it can happen to anyone. Basics And you have to learn to give information back to leadership so that they can do what is necessary to make improvements. If they don't realize just how many workarounds are occurring, they're not going to do anything about it. Everything's working fine. It looks good on paper,
Mm.
right? And that's what management and leadership see. They see the end result, but the end result doesn't look the same as it does when it's actually happening, and it involves you deviating from policies and procedures and avoiding things that are designed to make work safer because they're not working right. You have the ability to send an email and to write an incident report. And those are the two basic things that I tell new nurses. Put it in writing and tell someone. You don't have to have the answer to the problem. That's not your job. Your job is just to tell someone, hey, I'm a licensed nurse. I have to follow the State Nurse Practice Act and your facility's policies. And in order to do this job, I'm not able to follow those. Here's the situation. You fix it, right? And every time you have to do that, follow back up. You don't even have to rewrite it out again. Hey, remember January 3rd, I sent you this email? Same thing's happening. Following back up again. Send an incident report. The incident report goes to the quality people. That's their job. Every hospital has quality people, risk management people. They assess for situations like this. They know the bad and the ugly, and their job is to mitigate the risks and look at quality and safety. So if something's not working well, again, all they're seeing are green lights. They're seeing the reports, they're seeing the end results, they're not seeing what's actually happening. There are people out there that you can tell. Again, new nurses aren't really taught about what these departments are and what they do, and that you have the autonomy and the professional capability to say, hey, I'm a licensed professional. I can't do my job properly. I'm going to let you know about it because it's your job to fix it, right?
Mm.
It's very overwhelming for a brand new nurse to think that they could do that, but you absolutely can. You absolutely can.
So, so in framing incident reporting the way you did, if I'm understanding how you said it, you're saying that incident reporting is a tool that keeps quality systems and ultimately patient safety at the forefront. If
Yes.
it's incident reporting because of workarounds, it might be an inconvenience for you, bedside nurse, but is that inconvenience worth it for the end goal of patient safety? If you
Right.
made a med error and you're filing an incident report after an error has happened, it might be post conviction that your license is on the line now.
Mm-hmm.
But again, are you willing to save your own skin at the expense of the broader picture of patient safety? And
Right.
I,
And here's what I say, something that I didn't think about at the time. Like if I could go back and tell my former self to do a couple of things differently, one, I would have listened to my gut and just said, I can take a travel pack down. Two, I could have easily just written one incident report at the end of the week and tagged my manager or pharmacy, any pharmacist, and say, I had to, I continued to have to override unnecessarily this week. I don't even have to tell them what, when, who, how. You know why? Because they have electronic records that they can go back and they can look at all of that stuff. They can pull the reports, they can see it. I have the report for every drug I ever pulled while working there. I also have the report for the last 30 days. Maybe it was 30 days before this event and like 30 days after for every drug that was pulled on the unit out of all
Wow.
wow,
three cabinets.
holy cow.
They have data, they have reports. You don't have to provide that level of detail. You just need to give them a real brief synopsis. This is a nursing diagnosis. Hey, this ain't working right. I had to override unnecessarily, again, multiple times this week. If I had done that once a week for at least 4, 5, 6 weeks, and now can you imagine how different that would look when all of my incident reports are handed over to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation?
Mm.
This nurse sent 6 different complaint emails about how many times she was having to override unnecessarily.
Or alternatively, somebody is brought in to,
The
cause her
best
to
case scenario is someone's brought in to do something about it.
change. Yeah,
Worst case
change.
scenario, at least you have a paper trail for trying to prevent the bad thing from happening, right? And, it's really hard for me to say that, try to imagine the worst possible thing that can happen. Like if I had just said, no, I'm not going to override this drug, um, I'd have kept that woman in the hospital for another day after Christmas. But I really didn't think that the alternative would be that I would have killed her, right?
Well,
That is the reality of certain pathways and certain decisions that we make, or the outcome that could look like. So pausing in
and
a moment when you're questioning yourself and saying, if I make a mistake here, what's the worst possible scenario? The worst possible scenario usually is that someone could die. What's the alternative? The alternative is that she gets this test tomorrow.
I'm gonna just interject a little bit there because I know you are suggesting a newer nurse, say something or listen, but I mean, with the scenarios that they're placed in and the time crunch,
They probably don't know what they
that's
don't know.
that's a really hard. Somebody's saying we need to do this, we need to get this done right now, and for someone to say no, you have to be, even for the really
You got to have some
experienced person,
some some big cojones
you
to
have to
say,
have some
yeah,
big stuff going
yeah.
on there.
I
Yeah,
completely understand. I know that it's a big ask. I
that's a
get that
big
it's a
ask.
big ask. And so that's why I need new nurses to have it at the back of their mind, right?
Mm.
You have to be watching for things that are going to be concerning, that are going to put you and your patients in an unsafe situation. And when you do, you you simply have to say something. You have to. The, you have to. And that may look like saying something after the fact. That may look like, you're in the moment and you do the things, nothing happens, you're good. But after the fact, you still absolutely have the opportunity to say, hey, this did not go as planned. And while it may have happened in this moment, I'm letting you know this because if this situation were to arise again, I am not going to feel comfortable proceeding like this.
Those near
Because
misses can become a direct hit.
they can become a direct hit, right? And the
Mhm.
near misses are going to be way more often than any of the direct hits are. But the direct
That's
hits are
right.
going to be, they're going to be much more impactful. You're going to remember them. Um, you can go back after the fact and say, hey, I had to do this. I didn't like it, right? The policy says that I'm not supposed to be doing this, and
Mm.
I'm finding myself having, I'm finding myself in the position more and more of being asked, or almost forced to do this, or to not be able to provide the appropriate care for the patient. And that's not a situation that I'm comfortable putting myself or the patient in. I need someone to do something about it, right? You can't always get ahead of it. I would never expect that a new nurse would be able to say, nope, not doing that. One, because you're probably not even going to recognize it in the moment, but you will get some time to think about it after the fact. And so even if it's the next day, if you got to come in 10 or 15 minutes early, to send that email or write that report, the reality is nursing has got lots of challenges, and we are the only ones that are best suited to advocate for ourselves and to make the changes necessary. We can't rely on other people who don't understand our profession and who are not working in our roles every day providing that care to make those decisions for us, because they don't have the information that you have and will have when you're doing that job. They don't have the understanding. They don't see the real picture. So it is up to us as nurses to be the ones to share that information with your leadership, with your management, with your quality directors, with anyone who will listen when something happens. I need this to be better, right? We can't keep doing this. We're working around things. I'm not sure if you're aware about this, but it probably looks good on your end because we're getting the job done. But did you know this is what we're doing to get there? Something bad's going to happen. I need you to fix this. I can't keep doing this anymore.
And that's, in my experience, what's given me the courage to speak out when otherwise I wouldn't, is remembering that at the end of the day, speaking out is advocating for patients. It's not about me. It's not about my shift. It's about the patients that we're caring for. And then it's worth getting some skin in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, every nurse is going to have a story. And, your students they'll be no different once they get their feet wet and, they're licensed for a year or two. They're going to see these things as well. My hope is that they're not going to be like the group of nurses now who are sticking around for a couple of years and they're so burnt out and overworked and overwhelmed that they can't find a path forward. They're so stuck in this system that doesn't work. But they can't even figure out how to. They just leave altogether, right? And then you just have this revolving door of experience that leaves, and that's not good for anyone either. They're not talking about the things. They're not saying we're not going to do these things anymore. It's up to us, and it's going to be up to these new nurses to fix the problems, which is a lot to ask. And
you've been, sorry.
It's okay.
You've been
the big ask.
Really generous with your time. I wonder if you have just a few more minutes that I could ask you a couple questions that students submitted that that we haven't covered.
Let's go.
We covered most all of them, but one is intriguing to me. They asked, do you think utilizing AI can help nurses reduce medication errors? Why or why not?
Look, I think technology is great and it can be leveraged in a lot of different ways. I will say there are things moving forward. AI is going to be in our hospitals. It's coming. So we do need to understand how to work with it, to know what its strengths are and where it can help us, and also what its limitations are. The AI that comes into hospitals should be AI that is not going to give you false information. So you're not going to be Chat GPT where it could make something up, you'd be like, oh, tell me about this drug. And it might give you some, facts that are they're not real. They're not findable.
Or have biases built in that color. Right. Yeah.
So I've been to some conferences and I've heard a lot of people talk about ways that AI is coming into hospitals and in fact is already being used in a lot of hospitals that probably nurses aren't the ones using it, but it's there. It's being utilized. I think when it comes into the hands of the nurse, the big question that the nursing community has is if the AI is suggesting or, providing you a route to go, or in some way contributing to the care that you're providing, and something does go wrong, what happens there? Where's that responsibility?
Who's liable in that event?
Who's liable, right? If the AI says do this thing and it's based on an algorithm about what a CHF overload patient looks like, and it's trying to help you walk through that and determine, is it time to give the Lasix? Is it not time to give the Lasix? That the AI is only capable of doing what the AI is capable of doing. The technology is always going to have limiting factors. It's going to be you. It's there to support you. It's not there to work and override your clinical decision making and your critical thinking. So yes, it can be but you still have to trust your gut. Be able to critically think and trust your gut. Yeah.
It may think that Versed stat should be ordered rounded up 15 minutes.
It may.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And again, there's lots of ways they're using AI and a lot of in some big hospitals, these devices just kind of come into the room with you, and as you're talking, you're you're verbalizing your assessment, and AI is documenting it for you. But it's still the nurse's responsibility to go back and say, review that and lay eyeballs on it and make sure that's correct. I mean, it may come to a point in medication administration where, you're running a code and something is listening in the background and you're like, hey, give 2 of this, give 10 of that, give this and this. And you know, it's it's making note of that in the background.
Wow.
It's still your job to go back and verify, right, that's what's been
To
done.
use this.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the technology is great. It's there to be helpful. It is not a substitute for your licensed role, for your ability to critically think in a situation and your clinical knowledge and skill set. It's not a substitution for that. It can help you, but
A tool. It's a tool to
yeah, it's a tool.
I just wanted to add one of these things here. One of the students just said a comment, just as we speak, about you, and they added, "I just hope you feel supported by the healthcare community
I do.
with
I
a
do feel
Part
largely
7."
supported. There have been a lot of people who have, over the years, I can't even tell you the amount of kindness, people donating to cover legal fees, people writing letters, people sending things to the judges, people showing up to protest outside of the courthouse, people continuing to ask me to come and share this information and tell us about what you've learned and how we can learn from that and make things better. I feel incredibly fortunate to, to not have had a negative interaction with a person. I'm sure that there are people who,
Good.
they don't think that positive. That's fine. But, I try to stay off social media a whole lot. I don't really, put myself out there. I put myself out there I am vulnerable to the healthcare community because those are my people when it comes to talking about this. And they have been very supportive in allowing me to be vulnerable without turning around and using that negatively. They're recognizing it, that you're being vulnerable and we have things to learn here. And they're very appreciative of that. And they give me the space to do it. And they're kind and they're respectful. And I can't really ask for anything more given, all of the things that have happened.
Good. I'm thrilled to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about a little earlier, in regards to med errors, there are 3 scenarios. Either you didn't realize it happened, you don't admit that it happened, or that you admit that it happened and you file an incident report and are honest with everyone, and you chose number 3. I respect you. I think it's amazing, and your definition of accountability is it's inspiring, quite frankly. And so I just want to say that out loud.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Tony.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Another question?
Yeah, let's do it.
If you could change one part of the healthcare system, RaDonda, to reduce errors, what would it be?
I would increase nurse staffing.
Mm-hmm. That's solid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing that nurses need more of? They need more time. Right. And I think when you look at when you look at medical errors, or really most errors in general, when you start to study like systems thinking and human factors, and you look at other industries and you look at, what happens when something bad happens, and you follow back and you try to investigate time. Time is always a precious resource that doesn't seem like there was enough of it, right? Time was certainly an issue in this case. Um, having the extra time, and when you have more people to do the job and you're not giving them too many patients, you have more time with each patient, and that's going to be catching things, providing education, better outcomes for the patient, probably better Press Ganey scores, but that's a whole nother thing anyway. But yeah, I would say I would staff nurses. And probably I would have to look at other staffing in the hospital, because it's not just the nurses, physicians, the RTs, the NPs, the PAs, the radiologists. It's everybody. The pharmacist.
Yeah,
It's everybody
the dietary, the cleaners, the
across the board, and every
right.
single one of those departments is just as important as the next. So I think staffing would be where I would focus, because I think that could mitigate a lot of problems if we just had enough people to do the job.
Here's a more personal question, and I love that this student was thinking of you as a person. In this, they asked, how have you survived the social impact on this as a second victim, and how have your interactions with friends and family been a part of that?
Yeah, I read that question. I was like, wow, I don't know who that nurse is, but I like where your head's at, because you're a thinker. This is a deep thinker.
Yeah.
How has it affected, let's see, socially? I am really fortunate that, the people in my network, my social community of people, have been nothing but kind and supportive. They know me as a person, and let me just text my husband real quickly on a call.
Sure.
Speaking of, right? Perfect timing.
Yeah, my husband's been very supportive. My family, my friends, my close group of people, my coworkers, that I worked with at Vanderbilt, they would come visit, stay in touch. Obviously, from a macro picture socially, lots of people were supportive, but as far as changing my interaction, sure, I think it's affected it, but it's more affected me and how I live day to day. It's affected me, and there's lots of trauma responses to things.
Mm-hmm.
So, my fight or flight was stuck in freeze for a long time. And that certainly had an effect on how I moved through my life and how I was able to do things and complete things. Frozen thinking the worst possible scenario, even at like the most minuscule tasks. So it was a significant overreaction to something and it wasn't like I was overreactive outwardly. It was very much just like, and so it that's definitely taken. I think therapy is important. I think everyone should have a therapist. I think this therapy really helped me identify what was happening there. And in doing that, it's that being able to communicate what's happening inside to the people that you're close with can certainly help them have a better understanding, because it's not their experience. They're just going to be trying to support you the best they can. But it's taken a lot of work on me too. But I can't think of a single moment, honestly, over the last 8 years or more, where there weren't people who were there to support me and be kind. And I know that that's not something that most people are going to get. That makes me really sad.
Well, from several states away, count us as among your supporters.
I know. You guys are my friends. Thank you to that student for asking that question, because it is important. We don't really think about how to support people after these kinds of things and the effect that it has. But I can tell you, when someone goes through something like this, especially when a patient has a bad outcome, that the people involved in that process, they are not the same. Even the med safety officer who wasn't there and had nothing to do with this lingers over her to this day. I mean, I talked to her. It's something that she still struggles with. The effect is big. And so I do appreciate that this person asked about that and recognizes that we do have to be there for each other and take care of ourselves as humans. Because if we're not, we're really not going to be able to do a very good job as a nurse.
I think the fact that the person you just referenced, that it affected her, that the student asked this question, that it affected you is just evidence of humans caring.
Yeah. I think there are a lot more good people than we really realize. We see a lot
Mm-hmm.
of bad and negative stuff, but I will tell you this experience and the amount of kindness, it gave me a renewed faith in people. Not that I thought people were bad. I'm a glass half full person. Like, I'm a super optimistic, and I've been able to like pick a lot of that back up. But man, seeing how people respond and how many good people are out there, we're not that outnumbered. There's a lot of good people out there.
I love that.
I love that we're kind of ending on a redemptive note in all of this. Along with that, I wonder if you would be willing to share what it is that you do now.
Yeah, so now my husband and I have this farm that we've had for 10 plus years, and that keeps us fairly busy, but I'm it was not the same kind of fulfilling that I got when I was working for those couple of years at Vanderbilt, being the most, amazing version of myself that I thought that I could be. That was so fulfilling. That work was so fulfilling. And so over the last few years, like 3 years or so, people have different organizations, all kinds of different healthcare organizations, hospitals, nursing associations, student nurses associations, educators, risk managers, pharmacists, the gamut. In addition to people outside of healthcare who work in other really high risk industries, have asked me to come and talk about this experience, to share what I've learned. And I thought that was just going to fizzle away. Like, it was just kind of, maybe like the year or two after I was sentencing, people would still kind of talk about it. And I'm like, I kept, like, yeah, I guess I can do that. Really not giving it any thought that it would turn into something that would be continual years later. And it's only gotten more and more often that I've been asked to do that. And so then I started thinking about, I mean, yeah, it's great that people are asking, and that they're curious and they want to know, but I don't just want to tell a sad story over and over. Like, how do I do more with this? And so over the last year, I have started to encounter people from different organizations, people who study systems thinking, who study human and organizational psychology, who study human factors, who study all of these different areas of study, and they kind of put it together under this sort of umbrella that they call human and organizational performance. And it takes into accountability, it takes into account all of these different sort of principles, and puts them together in a way that we look at how complex work is done. And what I've realized is that, I've been kind of doing what they were doing all along as I was going through my criminal trial, as I was going through the board of nursing. I had the opportunity, which most people will never have in healthcare when an event like this happens, to literally have all the evidence handed over to me.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, I don't have a license that's holding me back. I don't have a job that's holding me back. I'm not even bound by HIPAA anymore. because the medical records are out there in the public. I
Mhm.
have nothing holding me back, and I have all of this information, and I've been studying it, and it lives rent free in my head. And when I met these people, they're like, "Hey, this is the perfect, this is what we, this is the picture that we need leadership to see about how complex work is done. You have this story, it's contextually rich, you have all of this data and all of this information. And not only that, you're willing to stand here and say like defend yourself, but you're willing to stand here and account for what happened.
There's that word
You're
again.
willing to bring in the systems thinking, and you've put that together. You've put together the human factors piece about, what you were thinking at the moment and what caused you to go in certain directions, and you continue to talk about how important it is that we talk about near misses and we talk about failures in terms of learning from them. And so it's just work like this. It's given me a framework to do something even bigger. And in the future, that's where I see myself going. I see myself going down this path of learning more about this study of things and figuring out how I can bring it back to healthcare and how I can support the people at the bottom doing the work, because a lot of this work is focused on leadership, management, right? The C-suite. When we talk about human and organizational performance and systems design and culture and all of those things, it's the top down that gets, the top third gets the majority of that information, and the rest of the people below are just sort of doing the work. But that's where the information is. That's where the
Mhm.
information is. Like, you're pulling stuff from the outside when really I want to teach the people down here how to give context rich information to people above them. This Andy says great leaders make great decisions with great information. And she's one of the people that
Even
studies this like teaches human and organizational performance to lots and lots of companies. And that is so true. If you are a good leader, you can make really good decisions with great information. But if you don't have the great information, which is coming from the people doing the work, you're not
Mhm.
able to make these great decisions and great impacts, right? You're gonna make your decisions based on what information is coming to you. And I want to support the workforce in being able to provide that information, to share, these are our concerns, this is what we think, here's our ideas. I want to open up that communication so that we are truly building systems that people are working in where they're doing really great things, whether it's healthcare or whether it's building airplanes or, nuclear stuff, whatever it is. There's all kinds of risky things that we do, but we can do it so much better, right? And there are people doing the jobs that have all this information. I want to
That,
I want to tell people how to bridge that. Like, how do we get that out, right?
that's so amazing. Thanks for not giving up on us, the nursing profession.
No,
It,
never. You guys, man, you
yeah,
didn't give up on me.
yeah,
No.
So
that's
like,
incredible.
yeah, I like, I feel like I'm finally coming into a place where it's like I'm not just talking about this anymore. I'm able to do things with it that can, I think in the future, in the coming years, are really going to have even more of an impact. And I'd like for people to have some tools and some guidance and some structure for what it looks like to work in a complex adaptive system in healthcare as a nurse and feel comfortable saying, I'm able to spot that, right? I'm able to
Mhm.
spot that. I'm able to say something about it, and I know just who to say something to. Oh, and by the way, there's a resource over here that might provide some helpful information with that too, right? Like, I want to see that happen, and I feel like um, the universe is just, it's supporting us.
Uh, I love it. It's inspiring. Just changing the outcome for a lot of things in systems that, you know, quite frankly, they have a lot of work to do in many systems, no matter where they are. And, you can't identify those areas where there's problems until you get down to the ground level, and get that data of where people are, doing the actual work as the system runs. And, wow. I mean, I took away just so many great things, great sayings, great topics. You're just a pleasure to talk to. I just want to thank you so much for your time. I could
I'm
talk
a
to you
really
all
nice
day.
person. I'm a great talker.
I
I'm a
could
great
talk to you all
listener
day.
too. I'm a great listener. Yeah, if you
Yeah, no.
if you want to talk to me about your problems, I'm happy to listen.
Well, I don't know if we have enough time for that.
Well, I will say I'm really grateful for Joey, I'm really grateful that you reached out. And I'm super hats off to you guys. Educating is not an easy job. It's so important, especially, and I know we talked about this because I got on my soapbox for a minute. I'm not an ADN graduate, I'm a BSN graduate, but I am all for our ADN programs because look, that BSN program was ridiculous, and I'm fairly certain I have walked and worked beside plenty of ADN prepared nurses who absolutely are more than capable of doing the job and owed a heck of a lot less in student loans than I did. Still paying on those. But at the core, it's the same, right? It's the same. You're taking the same NCLEX. You're going to work right next to those nurses. Shame on the hospitals who, are pushing those ADN nurses out or our LPNs out. That frustrates me to no end. It frustrates me that, the professional organizations want everyone to have bachelor's and master's degrees. That's great if that's what you want to do, but it doesn't mean that you can't still do the basic fundamentals. And that is what this program is. And every single nurse has that. Every single nurse
You
has these things. And
you
so,
might need to scoot over just a little bit to make room for me on this soapbox
yeah,
because yeah, I feel the
I will
same
make the
way.
soapbox as big as it is. So hats off to you guys. And look, I wish your students from now, however long in the future, you're sharing this with them. I
Yeah.
genuinely wish you nothing but the best of luck in your education, whatever you decide to do with this degree and in your nursing profession. You have some challenges ahead, but you guys are preparing them for that. So
Mm.
kudos to you. Hats off.
Thank you so much.
Your positive impact, you know, will be felt, and it's felt here at our college. Just with this, what you've presented the opportunity for us. We wanted to ask you a question about. I know you lay it low on social media. Our director was discussing that she's going to be starting a LinkedIn page for our college. And, just a request, would you be okay if we shared your
Yeah, you can do
LinkedIn
that.
profile there?
Yeah,
Would you be comfortable with that?
that's fine. Most of the organizations that I've spoken to do share things on LinkedIn. Um, I I am still cautious about how much I engage in the comments because every once in a while there's, you know, someone that will just kind of have, I'm not sure quite how to take it. Like I don't
Uh,
know. It's just one one person in particular. I don't know how to take it, and so I'm just like, having your opinion is okay, but I'm just, like my gut's just like, you probably don't like me, and that's okay. So I just try not to. I don't dangle the bait. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
don't if you're scared of the dark, don't go walk around in the woods in the dark.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not scared of the dark, but
That's a good analogy.
I just don't want to dangle that carrot, so I'm fine with you sharing things, that's fine. Most of the organizations will share something. They'll share on their social media, we got a conference coming up, this person is coming to speak, and that's fine. I just may not engage with it a whole lot. So if that kind of gives you, an idea of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and out of respect, we just wanted to make sure, before anything,
I
we
appreciate
asked.
you asking. You're welcome to, share something on LinkedIn. I'm okay with that. That's fine. It doesn't bother me.
Okay. Okay.
If you ever make your way to Kansas City, let us buy you a coffee.
No, barbecue.
Or
We're gonna
Hold
buy you
on.
barbecue. Buy you barbecue is what we're gonna do.
Hold
Oh
on.
my gosh, this could be too good to be true.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Hold on.
Edge of my seat. I don't like barbecue. I don't like barbecue.
What?
I don't like
Well,
barbecue.
too bad. That's what we're known for. Sorry.
It is too bad.
That's too bad for you. I mean, if she comes, we're going to barbecue. I don't care if you like it or not, Mr. Colaizzi.
April 16th, NKC Hospital, Kansas City, Missouri.
North Kansas City Hospital?
Yep.
That is close. That is close.
That is for April 16th. I just had the location. That is for, it's not for North Kansas City Hospital. It's for, I think it might be for the Organization of Nurse Leaders and another group. Hey, buddy. I love you. It's the AWHONN, Missouri Kansas Bi-State Conference.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, if in the midst of them whining and dining you, you have time, we would love to connect. That would be awesome.
I'm trying to see, when is that? It's on the 16th. Is it on the 16th? I'll have to just put that on your radar.
Sure.
So 16th. I don't remember if I'm speaking to them on the 16th or the 17th, but it'll be one of those 2 days. So in that time frame, somewhere in there.
That'd be amazing. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if it can work, that would be
so cool.
That'd be really neat.
Go grab some barbecue and a coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
She likes barbecue too. Shoot.
Yes.
I like barbecue. I like a dry rub barbecue, but I like the sauce.
Okay.
I don't want it to be too sweet. I like a little tangy in there. Little vinegary, but not too much.
Okay.
I've got just the place. I already know.
Okay.
And if you can't come, you know what? You may just find me just like with a DoorDash, snack it on and just say, I just wanted to say hi and thank you for what you did. We have a good conference, and that.
I love it.
That.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I have to have a call with them at some point because I don't think I actually did have a call with them. I think there's the speakers bureau just kind of was like, hey, are you available for this date? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, cool, here's a contract, show up. So we will talk later, closer to the event, which is
it's getting close,
far away. So I would imagine that conversation will happen in the next few weeks. So I'll keep you posted, because then at that point I'll know exactly when I'm speaking and where I'm staying, and I have a flight booked, but it's just kind of general, like sometimes you usually have to change the times, but it's there, so it's on my calendar, so it's done. So I'll let you know.
Okay,
great. Yeah. That sounds good.
Wow, that is awesome.
Neat.
Very, yeah.
I love it. We're friends now.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks for your time today. Golly, thank you.
Appreciate you so much.
Look, I'm glad the collab lab worked out well for everybody.
Right?
Yeah.
Now we got to play with the technology side and hope that it all pans out.
It's going
to.
So far, so good.
Yep.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I hope this
Yeah.
is super helpful, and hopefully I'll get to see you guys in April.
Awesome.
Sounds wonderful.
Okay.
All right, RaDonda.
See ya.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
You're
See ya.
welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.